Just toss out the first question from Al Jazeera, the sign of respect. Absolutely no way. And that was the attitude the Central Command always had towards Al Jazeera. It had when I left. At one point, I was even challenged by an Air Force Lieutenant Colonel to check my uniform to remember which side I was on, because I would argue to give Al Jazeera greater access. He questioned my loyalty to America. And I thought then, and I'm certain of it now, that he just didn't get it. He didn't get where the larger war was really being struggled. He didn't get what it meant. If you really believe in what you're doing here, here's where you need to go on and explain it to the people. That was put to me. So what was my background? My background was I'd read Iraq for Dummies on the plane ride over. I wanted to learn to speak Arabic because I didn't know how. And in doing that, no one on the base spoke Arabic. They were mostly from India or Bangladesh, these kind of places working on the base. So when Al Jazeera came to set up their media offices, they were the first people I encountered that actually spoke Arabic. So I would go by each morning and learn a word from them, maybe 2 words from them. And then I'd go back at lunch and try out my new words in conversation. Of course, they had the best lunch catered in from the local Arabic caterers. And Arabic hospitality meant you had to stay and eat lunch. So I did this essentially every day, much, much better than the chow hall food. But what it also did was it gave me a chance to eat with them and try to understand the way they saw things. And in doing that, I was essentially seen as that Arabic guy at Central Command, even though I didn't speak the language other than, like, hello and God willing in Islam, which you can say to almost anything. But I became the, hey Josh, you got a pretty good relationship with those Arab guys, why don't you take all the Arab press? That's how I became the face of America for the invasion of Iraq. That's how much strategic forethought Central Command, the Bush administration, Pentagon had put into who's going to be the face of America in Al Jazeera. None. No forethoughts whatsoever. I mean, long before someone planned for the bombs and shock and awe were going to fall, somebody in the huge building that's the Pentagon should have said, who's got Al Jazeera? Who's going to explain this to the people in that region? Because if you don't explain it, there's going to be a backlash. I mean, you don't have to be a regional expert to get that. You don't have to be a genius to get that. We're conducting a military operation in their region of the world. We're taking over an ancient capital in the heart of Arabia, and we're not going to go on and explain it to them on the very channel that they're all watching. I mean, it's absolutely, it's beyond hubristic. I mean, it's kind of bizarre land. So anyway, that was the position that I found myself in at Central Command. Well, there weren't a lot of people willing to listen to a young officer who said that we need to engage their media in a different way. It was way above my pay grade. So I went back to my job in Los Angeles, which was at the time representing the Marine Corps in the entertainment industry. Yeah, which was even more bizarre land. And so, I found myself spending my days on the set of JAG, which is, it's a really popular show. It just wasn't my thing. And so television is much less exciting than you would think it is to actually watch happen. And I was very frustrated about this Al Jazeera thing, but there's nothing I could do about it. 8 months after I got back from the war, there was a call on my voicemail at work. And it was a message that said, it was the first Monday in February 2004. And it said, hey, you don't know me, but I just saw your movie at Sundance and wanted to say thanks. Now, representing the Marine Corps in Hollywood, we supported a number of films. Some were independent, some were major Hollywood productions. And I thought, maybe one of our movies made it into Sundance, that we loaned a Marine to or a plane to or something. So I Googled my name, Josh Rushing in Sundance, and up came Control Room. And I called my sergeant, Sergio Jimenez, and said, hey, do you support a movie called Control Room while I was at the war? Because no, I've never heard of it. So I kind of start looking through the websites, and their website's not about the movie, but about this military guy in the movie, this Marine. And I thought, oh no, I'm in trouble now. And I was in trouble then and for the next few months. It took me about 6 weeks to get a copy of the film, to track down filmmakers and say, hey, I think you may have made a movie about me. My name is Josh. And they said, oh yeah, I've been looking for you, where you've been. And so they sent me out a videotape. That's the only time I've ever watched the movie all the way through. To this day, I still don't own the DVD or anything. But I watched the videotape. For me, it was uncomfortable because it wasn't a movie. It was personal films. You know, I watched all the people in the background more than I watched me. Every corner you couldn't see around, I could remember around. And so I didn't think that much of it because it seemed like a very small film. But it ended up getting a lot of attention because it's about the media. I mean, if you ever, all you future filmmakers out there, if you want to make a movie get a lot of attention, make it about reporters. They'll all go see it, and they'll have blogs and newspapers. You know, not that many people saw Control Room, but I think most people who did have a blog, a newspaper, or a television show. So it became kind of a media spectacle. And the Pentagon wanted to know why they were receiving all these requests from the media to talk to me about this independent film. And I told them, you know, here's what happened. My boss at the time, a Navy captain, had been requested to have a couple of filmmakers from the University of Cairo who were doing a master's project about Al Jazeera, all around Al Jazeera producers in our offices. He said, okay. Then they asked if I would speak to a producer and they could film it. And he said, yeah, Rush, you can talk to the guy, it doesn't matter. It's two master's students from the University of the American University in Cairo was going to happen. So they brought in a producer. We sat down. We had one conversation. I'd never seen the producer before. I didn't see him again. He left, and I thought nothing of it for the next 8 to 10 months. I mean, I was on camera every day there on ABC and Fox News, on NBC, on Xinhua, European Broadcasting Union. So I didn't think anything about a couple of students from this college. But as it turns out, they did a pretty good master's project, and they got the recognition of Sundance National Distribution. How many hundreds of thousands of screens across America. But it became kind of this big deal. So I explained that to the Pentagon and essentially got back kind of a likely story, who can we talk to at Central Command? So I'm in New York, the Marine Corps is getting madder and madder, and they're getting calls on my cell phone, wanting to know why I'm in a documentary. And the one guy who saved me is this Navy captain. His name is Frank Thorpe. And he left Central Command to become the public affairs officer for General Myers, the Joint Chiefs of Staff. So I'm thinking, I've got to get in touch with Frank Thorpe. He's my alibi. And I looked down at the New York Times, and there's no kidding. And the Washington Post just reused this picture this week, which is kind of funny. There's a picture of Secretary Rumsfeld and General Myers walking across Abu Ghraib. It's their first time there. It's a surprise visit right at the height of the scandal. And in the background, like a Rasputin kind of character, is Frank Thorpe. And I'm in New York trying to get him to answer his cell phone about why I'm in a documentary. And I just looked at it and said, oh, man, I'm screwed. Because, the one guy in the middle, the biggest media story in the world, happens to literally be in Abu Ghraib at the minute I need to contact him on the cell phone. I'm not going to take my call. He didn't, and I was screwed. And the Pentagon said to me, you can't go to the premiere of this movie. This is why I was in New York. And I said, well, look, I'm on vacation. I can go see any movie I want, going to the theater. And they said, okay, there's going to be media there, and you can't talk to them. I said, well, what if a reporter, approaches me? And they said, if they put a microphone in your face, just walk away. And those words ended up being as precise as they were prescient. I ended up just walking away. Not just from reporters that night, which I didn't speak to the press, but ultimately from the Marine Corps altogether. 3 months later, the story, as the movie kind of slowly spreads across America, I get covered in all the entertainment sections of the newspaper, the magazines, these type of things, the E section, the C section. Well, my story, as soon as they say no comment to every reporter that calls, ends up getting shifted from C1 to A1. It's a classic, media relations mistake. They just added fuel to the fire. So it actually lands on the front page of the LA Times as Marine lands in film and collides with superiors. Great story about me. Makes my boss look like a real jerk, which was kind of the point of the story. I didn't get to comment in it, and then also the point of the story. But 2 days later, the Times takes an editorial position called The Credit to the Corps. New York Times does the same. The columnists start writing about it. Frank French even starts writing about it. And what I realized was, it was one of those weird moments in life where life converged. It was kind of a perfect storm. All these things converged at once. I had something to say about Al Jazeera. I was the only person in the world to be inside the Al Jazeera newsroom, the Pentagon leadership, and the administration at the same time. Because when I was in Central Command, my office was run directly by a Republican operative straight out of the White House.